the facilitators of this group. I also interview all speakers and ensure that they are suitable to speak to our group. I wish to express my gratitude to Dr. Bethany Silver for all the hours she works to send out notices, create those notices, and oversee all technical issues and systems which make it possible for our group to be streamlined on the internet worldwide and record meetings, maintaining the group's website and our YouTube channel. Without Bethany, our online support group would not be possible. Anyone that wishes to become a working facilitator of the group and donate significant time to assist in technical or other administrative tasks for our group should contact us. Upcoming speakers are, let's see, Glenn is tonight, of course, and I'll introduce him. October is Dr. Zeke, who's, I see that he's here tonight. Hi, Zeke. November 13 is Jane, and December 11th is Nancy Dannison, who's going to be a wonderful speaker as well. I got to speak with her, and she's great. All right, then. Thank you, Glenn, for accepting our invitation to speak this evening. To allow individuals enough time to ask the speaker a question, there'll be a one-question limit per attendee until everyone with questions has had an opportunity to be heard. The meeting will conclude promptly at 8:30. Anyone wishing to continue to share with other attendees may remain. We ask that all attendees make your audio, and when Glenn concludes his sharing, it'll be open for questions. Thank you, Glenn. You may begin.
Well, thank you, Bethany, and thank you, Tina, for all you do. First of all, I guess I'm Glenn Stouffer, and I'll give you just a brief introduction to set up the story line. I'm just about to turn 60. I was born in 1963 in Salem, Ohio. And for those of you who know the area, probably no one here, that's turned into the Rust Belt when I was growing up, that general area, Youngstown, East Liverpool, that sort of place. And this set up kind of a hard knock life, and it was full of violence, and there was all kinds of corruption. And so the reason I bring all that sort of thing up is to give you just a little bit of the background of what informed decisions and why I fought, I think, with the divine for so long in my personal journey. Basically, I had health problems from the time I was a child, disruptive home, moved around a lot, down to Florida, back, to Ohio, to a place that didn't offer much support. So, but through that thread, all that time, I do even one of my earliest memories is having an experience of unconditional love. I couldn't have described it to you in those terms at that time. But now I understand, and I can remember it in meditation, which we'll get to very shortly. I went back through all those times, and I understand that I received a gift of unconditional love in my heart. There was some sort of pull from the divine to keep me motivated, to keep me going, to keep me on the path, so to speak. And that sort of thing, I think you don't only recognize in retrospect, or once you had a hard experience that brings it to your forefront. Sorry, you can hear my sinuses. That's my problem. Around 2019, mid 2019, I had a health crisis that brought all this to a head. I had been working full-time off and on, and had actually managed to semi-retire early due to trading during the tech boom. Some of you may remember that. And I always had trouble with the cigarette smoke back in the day in the office. And so that always set me at odds with the management. So I knew I had to have a new career. So there was a lot of stress and stuff like that. And my health kind of got progressively a little bit worse over time. I didn't get any medication for it except allergy shots. And then in 2019, like I said, it came to a head. And I actually thought that I was done. I remember laying in my balcony and just trying to breathe. I knew that breathing could be difficult, but this was a whole new level of difficult, and I wondered why I was still here. And after weeks and months of poor sleep, poor rest, poor breathing, I think I had minor hallucinations. I mean, this was pretty extreme because of a lack of oxygen and a lack of sleep. So you go into different states of the brain where the brain actually basically dreams while you're awake, you know. So you will have hallucinations if you go long enough without sleep. And all of that, the divine had pulled through this entire lifespan some belief in the Bible. And I gave my life to Christ in 1995. I became a born-again Christian. And that was a whole wonderful and very involved experience, which if anyone has questions, I can go into that. That's my first introduction to, as an adult, having a mystical experience. But it's not quite as relevant as the other things are here today, I think. So, you know, praying, asking God why this health crisis had come upon me and what could I do about it was my main focus, the entire focus of my life at this point. And I really wanted to end it. And that was no small thing. I had suffered all my life, and I'd never been, you know, that way. I never wanted to end it. Always sought for solutions. You know, I've got a pharmacy at my disposal that I've learned over the decades to learn how to use to do different things. And so I started reading the NDE materials. I don't even remember how I came across them. Maybe a YouTube video or something. And I came across Eben Alexander, and he had a free file, and he was very impressive, and many of you guys are. So many of the stories here are present there, and I recognize them. I recognize you guys, and thank you for sharing your stories, because here's a guy who's looking to end it all, because life has just become untenable. And that's a true statement, by the way. That's not just an emotional statement. There was no point being here other than maybe something would get better. But Eben Alexander had this thing where you could download a free file for meditation. And he really talked about meditation and how his sound had played such an important role in his NDE experience and subsequent recovery. And he went on with his partner, Karen, I think her name is, to form a company, and they actually have a bunch of sound files now that help you do different sorts of meditations. Well, I grabbed this sound file, and I'd never had luck with meditation. I tried Buddhism when I was younger, but that's a whole other topic. Maybe a question later if anybody cares. It's like in Buddhism, they kind of like to throw you into the deep end of the pool. Swim. Well, if you can't swim in 6 months or a year, you're generally going to give up. It's been my experience. So, and not many learn how to swim, is the truth, in using that method. So I grabbed this file, sat down with zero expectations, but the big question in my mind was, God, is it okay to basically end my life? I want to end this pain. But I was really wanting to, the thing that really held me back most of all, and I know my daughter's here, a hand to God, the thing that I love them all dearly, but the thing that kept me here was I didn't want to disappoint Jesus. They would be fine. They're all cool. My family would be fine. I had gone through all those psychological and emotional milestones, and you know, I was just a blob, and I couldn't do much. And well, lo and behold, after many sessions, this meditation began to help me. It did begin to calm, and I learned a lot more about it over time. But somehow it helped me to achieve a level of meditation I'd never achieved before in my life. And it was valuable, and I began, I think, to be able to actually affect my breathing a little bit. The inflammation kind of went down just a little bit. So it was encouraging me to move on. And ultimately, one day I sat down, and I used to create in my mind an image of the valley of the shadow of death from the 23rd Psalm, right? And I would picture the void was where you go to meet God. Then there was the valley, and there was some sheep and some water for all the neat little imagery to involve yourself into it. And I would pray incessantly and ask God to talk to me and to tell me what should I do? Is it okay to end this? Am I going to hell if I end this? A lot of Christian churches teach that. And never having had to really face the question before, that was a big deal. And lo and behold, one day, a miracle occurred, and here I am. In some ways, healthier and better than ever, even though not really fully recovered from the breathing stuff. But my life is better than ever, and that's a miracle. Out of this void during the meditation, a giant white ram leapt out of the void. And mind you, I was thinking, God's in the void. He'll talk to me. I'll hear a booming voice. I'll see a picture of a face. Jesus will appear to me. I'm a Christian. Jesus is going to talk to me. He's my guy. He's my homeboy, right? No. A giant ram leapt out of the void. And at this point, I understand now this was an absorption, if not a mini samadhi. And this was just the grace of God. And that would be those would be yogic terms if you're not familiar. And I had no clue, but this energy took me over, and I was like a teddy bear on a roller coaster, I like to say. I had no control. I was just being shown and moved, and my consciousness moved with it. And I was totally absorbed, and energy came across my body and my mind and my soul, I guess I would describe now, but it was just an energy presence. And as this ram leapt over the valley, there was nothing but a void. And that void, this complete, I don't know why he left one void, he went to another. I don't know why. But in this void, out of the valley of death, maybe that was it. He was taking me out of the valley of death. And there was my father, a white light image, like an angelic type of figure, but not a nice one. My father was not a nice man. He was there, and he had a table, and he was butchering my pet rabbits when I was a kid, and that was a traumatic experience when I was 9 years old. Don't know why to focus on that still, but that's the way it was. But the thing about this image was in his eyes were spiraling white galaxies. And behind those spiraling white galaxies were like a field of stars, like you're looking at the Milky Way. And that energy that came from those eyes came upon me, and I realized this again, this is just happening to me. There's no mind here. It's not me. This is just like a download that I thought about later, right? This understanding came upon me that God had been with me in all of my struggles, all of my life, through all of the pain, particularly with my father in this case, and that forgiveness was my new heart. I didn't even think about forgiveness. All I knew was, of course I forgive. It just came upon me like a waterfall of energy, of love and forgiveness. And that was just shocking. And then it ended. And that was my first, let's call it absorption experience, if not a samadhi. And the energy and the unconditional love was off the charts. And I was just stunned. And I began this practice. Now, it wasn't me figuring this out. God was holding my hand, right? This poor little suffering guy here, he's holding my hand every day. I go through this meditation, and I don't have an exact experiences like that, but I have many experiences. But the main thing was I knew I had to go through my entire life, and it became a pleasure after a while to go through every memory that I had in my entire life as far back as I could. 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old. And that's how I remember the unconditional love experience I mentioned earlier. I go back, and find everything and forgive everything and love everyone. And that was, I would do specific things. And at first it was a little tough because you come across something from your parents or a childhood or your sibling or a bully at school that hounded you for years. These things, they have a grip on you internally. But over time, it became easier and easier and easier. Next thing I know, I kept, yeah, this is awesome. Every night at meditation, I want to hit the forgiveness trail. And that went on for about 8 months, long story short. And at the end of that time, my whole life had changed, really. I had seen relationships that had been rocky for 30 years suddenly began to become much more, friendly. And now have blossomed even into loving, supporting relationships. My experience with meditation, my experience of God, my experience of spirit, and just walking around, my health began to improve. My mood began to improve. I began to walk by and see myself with a big grin on my face, where normally in my life I'd be looking kind of like this because of the sinus pain. I'm just kind of grimacing. Like a smile for me was, that kind of thing, smiling through the pain. So that was really the first experience, and I guess why I'm here. I just say that God took mercy on me. And as Yogananda, I will quote him a lot tonight, probably, if I can remember to. He's my homeboy now. I'll get to that in a bit. But, God, love is the magnet that even God cannot escape. That, and he said, the only difference between you and me is that I refuse to give up. And I keep knocking on the door of God until he gets so irritated and he answers me. And that's what I felt like. I just kept knocking because there was no place else to knock. Okay, so rock in a hard spot. I think that's probably enough for the first experience. I hope that was illuminating to set things up. As far as a grand experience, if you weren't there, it doesn't seem like that much, I understand. But what came next? still blows me away, and I work on it every single day for over 2 years now. Okay, so let's throw a few things out there for possible discussion later if anyone cares about specifics. I had a lot of downloads. Anyone else had that? I mean, when I say that, I would go into what I call now an absorption state, like automatically. And I was being taught how to meditate just by the experience of it, by listening to the file. Like things would just occur to me. There was no conscious mind. I didn't learn any of this stuff until now, until years later. Now I can go back and say, oh, well, this is what you're doing, and this is why you do it, and you do this step. At the time, it was not. It was just God was literally like an energy came upon me, and it just walked me through all these things. I'll throw that one thing in there is that my teacher now has a great way of describing it. The path to the superconscious actually lies through the subconscious. And I was taken down as close to zero vibration as you can get. And suddenly movies would explode in my mind, or symbols, sometimes music, but colors, just amazing things. A color would come, and I would feel an energy come upon me, a particular kind of energy. Like the color yellow came through the chakra meditation once. And when that color left me, like I couldn't leave it because you're supposed to progress from one color to the next. But every time I tried to leave yellow, I would go back. I couldn't do it. And when it was done, I could breathe. My whole body felt strong. My mind was clear. I felt like I'd had a triple espresso. I mean, these sorts of things just started happening regularly, night after night after night. I see God was stringing me along, giving me motivation to keep going. I saw planets in the void that I thought were planets in a light blue sine wave. I don't know if any of you do meditation or you're into experiences. I'd love to hear anyone who also sees the light blue waves, because that color is my color, and I hope it's your color too. But I was by the feet of a robed figure. Couldn't tell, male, female, God, Jesus, Buddha, who knows. But looking to my left was a sine wave of light blue energy. And I saw planets. And then I realized my consciousness like zoomed in. Oh, those aren't planets. Those are universes. Floating in the creation of this light blue wave, I'll now give away the story, is love. Unconditional love. It's actually the creative force. Right? Now, there's some actually neat reasons to explain that more technically later. This blue wave will come in over and over and over again. Green flowers. I was told to go back to things in my dreams. I had a dream of this brilliant flowers just speaking to me. So I went into a meditation, and I went back to that image of the flowers, and it was almost like someone flipped on a switch. Bam. And a crystal conduit came from one of the flowers, hit me in the third eye, and I spent, I don't know how long, it was just like, I could feel this energy just like infusing me, and then it stops. I felt blissful, but like so many things, I didn't get a text. I didn't get a message. Jesus and the angels didn't come out and tell me what it meant. So I had to keep working. That seems to be a theme in my experiences. I saw the crystal triangle in my forehead incessantly for about a year when I would meditate. It was just there. And sometimes I would kind of feel like I could sense it in other people, but mostly it was in meditation. And it was a crystal, like a clear crystal filled with the blue light, very much like that light blue light that's going to keep coming around over and over again. I found I could attach to a dream or meditation an image from before and when I did that, when I would cast my consciousness into that bubble of that creation, there was a beach scene, or if it was the creative scene in the void, like my imaginative powers, I guess I'm calling them, but my visual powers, my ability to maneuver just grew. Like you're supposed to visualize things in certain meditations to lead you down the path. And they would always be kind of dull for me. Yeah, okay, there's kind of a beach. Yeah, water, okay, whatever. But when I would attach to these bubbles that had come to me in meditation, it was like 4D. I would think, oh, yellow, and this shimmering yellow would appear, and this blue and the red, and the crystals are white. And it was just like, wow. Okay. So that's it for the experiences. I had so many of these, I couldn't even possibly list them all in an hour or two. I found Peter Panagor's online group. He teaches chakra yoga from his experiences of having to learn to deal with his NDE. And, he also had a road of having to go step by step and personally was resisting it. So I could relate to his story a lot. He has a group he does. I'll say it's a great group. It's a mystic group. And that's where I learned that this experience of the divine was not only like repeatable, but it was transferable, I guess. And that's where I learned about Shaktipa and energy transference. And I found that it was portable. And sometimes when I would leave this meeting, I'd have a white light shining out of my chest. And I had people just walk up to me. And mind you, I spent, 50 years of my life being kind of a sour-looking guy. People would walk up to me, say, call me over. People I didn't know. One guy, we lived in a retirement place. I'd seen him a few times, didn't know his name, never said anything but hey to him from 20 feet away. He calls me over, and he starts telling me his life story. How he was a kid growing up in communist Hungary, and he was in the military, and he managed to escape one night, and he came here and went to school. I mean, really, his life story. I'm blissful. I have this wonderful energy about me for whatever reason. I'm sharing the Shaktipa and the love. And never again did he ever speak to me that way. I tried to engage with him many times after that, but if I didn't have the white light shining out of my heart, it's like, okay, you're just another bloke. So in any event, the next experience I'd like to talk about is the one that I hope someone here. This last week and a half, got a name for it. Didn't know what it was for like 2 years, but that's okay, because I learned that I just trust the divine. I go with what's given. Learning is part of that, studying for sure. You might call this the big kahuna. In one of these meditations I was doing, it was sort of an imaginative one, a led one, where you're supposed to go to a crystal healing place, and then you go to a place where there's a light, and you float in this brilliant light. Well, I was floating in the brilliant light, just like any other day, but one difference: I had been absolutely fixated on the idea of where the light comes from. I was studying with many groups and many texts, and I hit one text really seemed to really hit with me, and it was getting kind of detailed about some of the stuff I'd call like the hidden side of yoga. Almost, it was this channeled work from a certain psychic, and I was like, I can't believe how useful this is. This is amazing stuff. So okay, where does the light come from, my friends? God is not an electron, right? And in this meditation, a ball began to spin. Suddenly, I began again, like the Star Trek warp, but it's all black. Reality is gone. Anything I know is gone. My mind is gone. And there's nothing in my consciousness. I'm being led to see a ball spin. And it was black and white, just a little ball spinning in my consciousness, in the third eye, I guess. And this ball was black and white. And as soon as I recognized it's black and white, yin yang, it sped up. And every time it sped up, it was orders of magnitude, like then 1,000 times faster, then 1,000 times faster, then 10,000 times 10,000. And each time it was 3. We'll do this again in a minute. When it hit the third one, I would kind of like be expanded, like almost like I'm blown up or blown apart, like whoa. And then the next part of the experience started. So the ball sped up 3 times. It was now a gray ball, which I've been having a gray ball experience for over 2 years now, if you're keeping track at home. And this ball began to spin around me. Okay, instead of being isolated, it was now started moving simultaneously in all directions at like hyper speed. I could feel it down around me, and began to form a spear. And it sped up 3 times again. And each time it was like an infusion of energy. Just, oh, it's like, oh, wow. Whoa. And on the third one, I won't do it on the screen because I'd have to jump about like a hyena. I mean, it was just like 10,000 times 10,000. I say that infinite. There's no measurement. There's no description. I learned the word ineffable. I know what that means now. There is no human experience. And this was the start of the experience. The real experience began when I was encased in a sphere of stillness. This motion going around me so fast. It was infinite speed. Boom. Stop. It was stillness. And it was in this stillness that I like bathed in it for a moment. It was just experiencing the stillness. Like infinite speed creates stillness. So the idea of the consciousness of God being at all places at all times, right, became a living reality to me. I hope I'll cover that, maybe explain that more in just a few minutes. So, but then once I'd had a moment or whatever in this sphere of stillness, suddenly I heard laughter, the faint hint of laughter off to my right. Okay. And it was like a tunnel had opened up. And from this tunnel came laughter and bliss. And when I say bliss, please hear me. This is no human experience. I can't emphasize that enough. I was 55, 56 years old. I didn't know a human being could feel like this. I heard people describe hard drug experiences. I don't care. Give them to me all at once. Nothing can compare to this. As Yogananda says, once you've tasted God bliss, nothing in this world will ever tempt you again. I lived that. I didn't know what it was at the time. I walked around asking other people. I don't know, for a year. I'm describing this to people, and they're like, either this guy's a little nuts, or if you're in the ND community or different types of mystical people, they're like, oh, okay, that's kind of nice, but I don't really know what that is. Like, okay. Well, I finally got an answer for that. But that bliss, I'm still learning what that bliss means. And I'll give the plot away here just a little bit. I now understand the study of yoga, practice, various teachings, so on and so forth, that they might refer to this as the Andamaya Kosha. And I believe just the past 6 months or so, I've been able to work this out, that it actually relates to the doorway. If anyone's read The Holy Science by Sri Yukteswar, I would highly recommend it. It's a little technical. The yoga parts is a little dry, the beginning of it, if you're not into this sort of thing about astrological stuff. But once he starts getting into the sutras and he starts describing things, you get a much more technical understanding of some of the things that we just kind of gloss over because we experience something, but we can't really understand what it is. And I have lived that the past 2 years. So I'm your guy for, sympathizing with confusion. Trust me. But I try to describe this the closest I've ever been able to come. If everyone else has a better one, I'd be love to hear it. I describe it as 1,000 orgasms simultaneously. And that's just because I don't know what 10,000 feels like. Maybe it's 100,000. I don't know. But there is nothing else. And I was a blessed child for the first time in my life. I lived nearly a year in a state of grace. My teacher now tells me that I was starting to live in the absorption. I didn't know what that was. All I knew was that I was blissed out all the time. And if people got upset about something, all I could think was, dudes, it's no big deal. Look, cut it all around you. Feel the energy. It's great. Everything's great. Life is wonderful. That was me for a year. And not everybody likes to hear that all the time. Okay. I began to have this experience of that ball, right? The ball would spin, particularly in meditation, but it was all the time now. Like if I'm sitting here talking to you, if it had been, it's a little, I've gone through some other changes now, but for about a year or so, a year and a half actually, if I'm sitting here talking to you right now, I would be aware of a ball spinning around my head while I'm sitting here talking to you. In my mind's eye, I guess, the projection, internal vision. And when I would meditate, the ball would speed up and I could move it a little bit, but generally it stayed around the head, but I would feel also twisting, spiraling energy in the body. And this also stayed with me. So I was in this constant state, and this motion was like I was surrounded by an electric aura of bliss. And it just kept moving, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but I don't care. I hope that I communicated the strength of that experience. I would live for that. I would die for that. I want to go back to that. There's nothing else in my life that's significant as that. I understand it now. It's a very hard thing for your family to hear. My daughter's here tonight. I care. I love them dearly, right? But as my favorite writer, or one of them anyway, C.S. Lewis might say, if you aim for earth, you get neither heaven nor earth in the end. But if you aim for heaven, you get earth thrown in the end, right? So when you have God bliss, bliss creates, bliss is the origin, bliss is the nature of God. I've learned this from Yogananda. In fact, the bliss I experience may only be the first sheath of bliss. Maybe we can't even experience a very tiny percentage here, or we would just fly apart into the atom. I don't know. Peter Pandegor describes an experience where he went through stages of bliss in his NDE, and I can a little bit relate to that. I didn't get but one stage, and it just knocked my world upside down and inside out forever, apparently. Oh, the gray balls. I would like to touch on that just for a minute. In case anyone else has ever had, it would be great if anyone else ever had anything like this. Remember, I came from this as a Christian for like a year and a half, 2 years. I was mystified about what was going on. I didn't have a Hindu background. I didn't have a meditation background. I didn't have a Zen Buddhism background. I didn't have, and when I talk with even the NDE people, they all have very specific experiences, and it's wonderful. But nobody seemed to understand what the blank was going on with this thing. And I would just walk around. Like I remember one time I was with my daughter and my wife at a restaurant, and things would just, like I would be hit with an extra wave of it. Could feel the waves of bliss. I looked out to the tree that was growing out in front of the restaurant, and my hand just automatically goes up like this, and my hand so you can see it. I'm seeing the little gray balls creating my hand, and they're the same little gray balls that are making the tree. And I feel like a magnetic connection, like brother tree. I mean, I walk through the woods were amazing. I've had this. I can go up to a tree now, and especially if I'm feeling bad. I used to do it in healing groups all the time. I do meditation here. I try to do it, but it's different now. I feel the gray balls come up across the chest, and I would feel static electricity in the chest and out the right arm. This was all the time. No exceptions. I think during sleep, I wasn't aware of it. I was aware of other things. So, but everything, I take my daily walks here and just look at the trees, the animals, the walls. I mean, little gray balls, this is all an idea in the consciousness of God. And those little gray balls were representing to me that idea that these were infinitely divisible and indivisible. They were intelligent, like electrical conductors of consciousness, and they could form and reform. And I would just sometimes just stare at my arm for half an hour and think, thought is making this image occur. I mean, this is like trippy, man. I can still do that. Believe me, if I get into it, I really kind of meditate on that bliss experience. I can sometimes feel the wave. I feel like I become the wave. I am the wave of bliss. You know? So there's a few other experiences that occurred along the way. I'll throw out there. Now there was a negative one at the end, a big one at the end I'd like to talk about. I don't want to run out of time here. A few things happened along the way that were absolutely amazing, but none like this experience. Y'all just want to talk about bliss for the next hour? I'm your man. Okay. But I doubt there are many here that really want to do that. Yogananda appeared to me before I knew who he was. That's weird. Only because I was now hanging around Peter's group, I'd heard the name and I'd seen a picture on Facebook. He came to me in a meditation and opened up a room. Just the most amazing thing, the face of this guy, and I've never seen his hair that particular way in any photo I've ever seen. I've gone looking for it. I had a unique representation of this guy I don't know, okay, in my face, and this door opens up in the dark void. I go in the room, and there's a orange sparkly floor and a black stove and people in white robes, and it was just the warmest, most peaceful, loving experience. And I'm even able to go back to that room and have experiences. I've had oceans of light and love come to me from my etheric body or astral body meditating in that room to my physical body. These are all new experiences to me. So Yogananda and Lahiri Mahasha linked arms, and a light blue energy surrounded us. This would be in meditation. I do the SRF meditation probably at least once a week. It's for free at 3 o'clock on every weekday if you're interested. And this light blue energy surrounded us and shot us up, like elevator up 1,000 floors or whatever. And I was put in a dark void again, and there was a creature that looked like a robot, and he had paddles for hands, and he had 2 gray balls. Each ball was magnetically held above, levitated electrically or magnetically, and he was making different patterns occur by managing the electrical field that kept these balls in motion. And I'm just sitting there like a kid at a candy store going, wow, look what he's doing. I was enraptured. Again, I'm in, Star Trek warp darkness. All I see, this is my whole being, is this experience. And then I was taken to the right, and I saw a white, like sun-like thing, like an orb, creating particle waves in a circular circumference all the way around it, circular waves of particles being created. And when I saw that creation of particles, I mean, these are just sparks of light. I don't know what kind of particles they are. I might get into that in a minute. There are different levels of particles, you might say, but it might have been souls. It might have been material universe. Probably not material universe. Might have been photons. Might have been spiritual light. But in any event, it was bliss. Again, anytime I found that bliss now, I paid attention. Okay. My personal read on this, and I don't have 100% verification, but I think good, is that was Babaji. And I was being helped again, because that occurred when I tried to meditate with Yogananda and Lahiri Mahasha. And this energy came out of nowhere. And that energy has come to me out of nowhere quite a few times. One of the next greatest experience I ever had, besides the big kahuna bliss, was a river of blue light. In meditation, a river of blue, that light, blue light, I now associate with Babaji quite possibly, but this light came at me. And as this light came, it entered my third eye and then filled my body. And as it did that, I felt complete and absolute unconditional love. Again, just everything was gone except that experience. It was beautiful, but I didn't know what it meant until I got up the next day. I go to bed, great, feeling great. I had a wonderful experience. So I get up the next day and I'm walking around and we're getting ready to go to a sporting thing for the kids. And I'm like, wow, this is a pretty nice world we got here. Uh-oh, I'm spiritually drunk again. I'm telling you, we went to that sporting event and it was a rainy, cold day. And everybody else there was like, okay, I can't wait for this to be over. And I'm sitting there with my little hands folded on the bench going, oh, wow. Look at all these consciousnesses forming these patterns. I could see, like, in my mind's eye, the blue light creating the trees and the clouds and the school building and the field, and all these consciousnesses were agreeing to operate within this field of creation. It was just, that lasted about 3 days. It's like, I'm glad for it, but again, I'm not sure what it means, except help along the way, quite possibly. Oh yeah, has anyone had this? I was drawn into the eye of a dying man by that blue crystal light. I was trying to save his life, and as I did that, I leaned over him, and in meditation, and I was drawn into him through that light. I think the yogis would say that was a previous life of mine. Because of what I experienced, my teacher said the yogis would say that you were a Kriya yogi in a previous life. Well, maybe so, but I don't know that. The last thing I'd like to say, Andrea's not here today, but I want to plug Andrea. She was my lifesaver this year. And, maybe literally for all I know, because it got pretty bad. I had a negative experience, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But one of the beautiful experiences I had was getting out of that with her meditation, during her meditation. And also there was an experience, which again, in me, the one thing I've taken from all my experiences is that experience leads knowledge. I didn't know anything. So I would have an experience and I was fresh ground. Oh, that's great. Hey, well, I'll think about that. Or I'll try that. Or I'll meditate on that. No expectation, no understanding. I'm the Forrest Gump of meditation. I don't know what anything is. Okay. But it turned out God did, and he had a plan. And all these things that would occur, I would find out later. Confirmation to ease my skeptical mind, to give me means to be able to communicate to others, to say, hey, when you see this, and it gets confirmed, not once, not twice, not 10 times, not 100 times, hundreds of times, you stop asking the question. The question you ask now is, okay, God, what am I supposed to do with this? Anyway, one day I was driving my wife to the hospital, to the airport, and Andrea's Ave Maria, if you've ever been in her sound meditation, she does this beautiful Ave Maria, and it's just this most wonderful piece of music, and she's got you all set up with the sound meditation, and I've had many wonderful experiences in meditation. That's a whole nother talk, by the way. I don't know if she's aware of that. I've tried to let her know how much she's helped me, but I'm driving down the GW Parkway, and suddenly out of the blue, I mean, we're just driving along, and I've been having some trouble with some negative energy, by the way. So this actually felt really good. Maybe it's why it happened. I don't know. But suddenly I heard Ave Maria, the one from Andrea. It's playing in my head. Oh, this is nice. Then suddenly, after it played for a little bit, I felt this feminine energy come on me, like a mother's love or something. I'm like, just like a feminine energy. And I'm like, Ave Maria, okay, it's Ave Maria, it's Divine Mother, okay, this is cool. And it just got stronger and stronger. And by the time I got down, like an hour, we got down to the airport and dropped my wife off. I'm just like engrossed. Yeah, hey, how are you, Jeff, honey? Ooh, see you soon. I'm back. I'm having a good time. And I come back through rush hour. And the total of this was about 2 to 3 hours. I forget exact, probably about 3 hours start to finish. In rush hour, it hits about 5:30. And I notice right around 5:30, this feeling in this music starts to slow down. I'm like, well, it was great while it lasted. And by this time, I've had many energetic experiences, a lot bad and tons good, mostly good, but enough bad to kind of, start to understand how to maneuver a little bit. And I could feel the energy was dropping. I'm like, oh, wow, that was just fantastic. Thank you, God. Again, I didn't know anything. You know what I found out when I got home? I looked it up later. It was the day of the spring equinox. And at 5:30, the equinox was exact in our time zone. And this is the Hindu balancing time for Shiva, the balancing for male and female energies. And I could feel it start to drop off after the equinox peaked. And it took about a half an hour. And by the time I was getting towards home, I had no more Ave Maria, no more feminine energy. I was just kind of back to me. Yeah, kind of nice. That was a nice experience. So then I looked it up and I'm like sitting there looking at my wife and I'm saying, hey, have you seen it? Today's the equinox? Holy crap. So anyway, that was a tremendous experience. And it involved Andrea. And I'll get into a little bit later how important she was to me in another way in a minute. I did have, we're not running out of time here. I'll try to be quick. I did have a negative experience. I really questioned about whether I should bring this up or not. Like I said, I had energy spinning around my head and in my body, and it was blissful and wonderful. But I was hanging out with people who are like really into psychic gifts, and healing, and all these wonderful things. And they're like, "Oh, I can read the Akashic records, and so can do healing, and so can do this." I'm like, well, I've got a ball spinning around my head. What can I do with this? Okay, and so I sought out help. And the help I found turned out to be bad. So I went through, I turned to an occult ceremonial white magic, as they call it, practitioner. And at this time, I had convinced myself by listening to other people that it was a Kundalini awakening. And this guy had professed to have been through this, and he was going to teach you how to manage that energy. So there were certain processes. And long story short, you invoke angelic energy into your body in different ways, into different parts of your body, working with the different elements. There's some of this stuff is true, but you don't want to mess with things you're not ready for, and you don't understand. That's a big lesson that I should have learned a long time ago, I guess. But this whole new world for me was just amazing, and nothing had been anything but blissful till now. So maybe this was my big lesson here. This practice worked amazing. Like I said, I've had a weak body my whole life. I talked earlier. I've had lifelong problems with breathing in particular, but also weight problems when I was a kid and other things. So I got a strong body out of this. And I began to think, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. I mean, I would grab weights. Like I said, I'm almost 60 years old. I'd grab weights I could do, a dozen reps with, and I'm swinging around like I'm a teenager. 20, 30, 40. Yeah, hey, here, have some weights. I mean, my body got amazingly stronger, and that's the earth element aspect of this. That's what you start with. Well, then you go into the air element, and you start invoking energy into the mind. And that's when it went very badly. I noticed the first day I ever did this particular type of exercise. Now, mind you, I'd had like a month of nothing but progressive goodness. I mean, everything in my life is just getting better day by day, and now I'm even physically healing. I'm like, holy crap. And so when I had a problem with the mental focus, the very first day I ever did it, I was in traffic and somebody honked behind me. It was completely, they were being a jerk. I mean, I don't even think the light had finished turning pink before he hit the horn. So I noticed it, and me, I'm like, I wouldn't have literally thought a thought. But my mind began to work by itself. I began to have a process in my mind that I ended up having to fight with, because it kept saying, well, he's being a jerk. I'm like telling myself this. I know he's being a jerk. Who cares? Let's go buy groceries. We're going to the grocery store. So but he's being a jerk, and you should be angry about it. No, just be peaceful. I don't know why this is bothering me today, but it was. So, okay, move along. This progressed, and it ultimately got to the point where I would go into meetings with a group that I belonged with, and there was someone there who I think liked to project their energy onto you. And maybe doing it, this is one thing about like doing things you don't fully understand. If God has led you to do something or giving you something to do, that's amazing. But a lot of people are searching around, and they can fall prey to believing easy explanations for things. Let's put it that way. And caution first would be the word I'd advise. So this person liked to believe that he could fill the whole group with joyous energy. Well, this presence in my mind didn't like control of my energy field by anyone else. Okay. And I began to really, and he was so opinionated about various things. Some right, some wrong, not like he was always wrong about everything, but there were like little things you could pick at. And sometimes he was off base, even though he's right 8 times out of 10, 2 times he's off base. And you're like, but this energy in my mind now wouldn't let it go. And I was fighting it. This went on for, I don't know, a couple of months until I pulled the plug, and I'm like, this cannot go on. This is just absolutely miserable. And my body began to get weaker from the first day I stopped. I noticed that energy drop off. Like, I kept thinking to myself, well, this is so powerful. Maybe I'll die. Again, just in my own mind, I'm thinking, with that kind of power, if I just walk away and this thing drops me, like from a 50-foot cliff, maybe I'll just die. I didn't know. So it was day by day, and I got weaker. But the mental stuff, I come to find out that they can manipulate your energy body. So there were residual problems within the structure of what makes Glenn left over from their effect. And they may have still had some light hold on me. I believe they probably did, by what I discovered later. So just stopping the practice didn't get rid of it. I basically invited them into my energy body. Not a good thing. So it got to the point where one day, I could meditate, and Yogananda he kept me alive during this time, I believe. Try to watch the time. It was so bad, the fight would just be like when I'd wake up, it would start. It would be like 2 snakes in my head. Like this guy was trying to fight, and this energy, this angel consciousness or whatever it was, this other guy was fighting, and they were fighting for control. And neither one was good as a fight to the death. And my body began to feel horrible. Like I always said that I understand why some people might take hard drugs now. I'm like, you just feel like a walking landfill. And you understand now that, or at least I understand now that, your physical body is basically created by your energy structure. And so if somebody can manipulate your energy structure, they can have great effects on your body. And this was my problem. I could meditate, thank God, and I could get away from it. But as soon as I would come back from the stillness, the war was on. And it got to the point where I was literally like, look, it's you or me, buddy. I'm not giving in. Thank God for the meditation practice in Yogananda. During this time when I was very bad off, a number of things, just a couple of quick experiences. Yogananda came to me and took me to a field, and it was like an endless field of flowers. And there were some buildings there, like a farm, like a pastoral farm type of, scenery. And these flowers were souls growing up from the fertile ground of the divine. And each flower, each petal of each flower, was like beautiful and had the complexity of a universe. It was like a living energy in each petal that was complex and creative. And it was just this marvelous, blissful experience. And so I would get that. One time he came and I accepted the idea. I made a choice. I'm kind of like, so whoever, it's not Glenn, it's whoever made the choice, my higher self, guardian angel, whatever it is, made the choice to walk away from the conflict, like to avoid conflict. And when that happened, butterflies began to explode from my heart. And I was taken back almost to that bliss experience from earlier. Just the beautiful, blissful, flapping experience. I could still feel them, like I could feel they're touching my skin, like I could feel it all around me. And it was just blissful love, infinite butterflies. But this kept me going, I must say. Without that, I don't know what it would have been like. So one day in Andrea's meditation, I encountered a non-formed being. And I've had this a few times. I haven't mentioned it yet. But an unformed being, in my experience, is an entity that allows you, like, it doesn't take a definite form, but it allows you to know it's there. I think of it maybe like the Holy Spirit or something. And there was just, in my field of vision, again, it was like a Milky Way galaxy of stars, darkness stars. And there was this faint, I mean, just perceptible outline of like a head, like a little round thing, and like an arm, like a shoulder, just like there's something there. And I fell to my knees spontaneously. I had no choice. This was not a choice. I fell to my knees and I said, Guruji. And I felt something give. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. Thank you, Guruji, whoever you are. Okay. And like the next day I felt a little better, and the next day I felt a little better. And like every day for, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 weeks, I would wake up and be like, I hope I can wake up and the war's not, is the war gone? Is the war done? Are we out of the war yet? And after a few weeks waking up every day and thinking, oh, I have control of my own, emotional, psychological perspective. Oh, wonderful. I finally came to terms with that and got over that and started some spiritual practices, meditation, and lots of things along the way. I think I'm kind of running out of time here. So, oh yeah, go ahead.
Glenn?
Tina, yeah.
Yes, I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Well, it's a first of all, when you were talking about your experiences, it kind of reminded me of that conversation that you and I had when I was vetting you. Mm-hmm. And then you emailed me the next day saying that something happened and
yes,
you had a great sleep and all that. Can you explain how you, in reference to what you have been experiencing, how do you compare that?
Okay, yeah, absolutely fantastic. I'd put it as a top tier experience, but not as powerful as the river of light and the bliss, the sphere of bliss, the direct God contact, if you will. But no, in your energy, we just talked on the phone, for other people who might know. I've never been close to her physically, only ever seen her here, except for this phone conversation, and the only other contact. And coming out of that conversation, just trying to answer the questions, I felt a really peaceful, wholesome feeling. I get qualifiers a little bit about it. A very wholesome, that's the word that really came to my mind, a beautiful, peaceful, loving experience. And healing on some level, but not a strong blast of, here, I'm going to fix you kind of thing, but a little bit of healing energy in there. Now that night, when I meditated, actually, and I've had this a few times. If you ever had this where you're out of the void, like there's a dark sea of nothingness. I say that represents eternal consciousness in my mind, right? And slowly rising out of this, like there's a swan. So imagine that swan is submerged in water. And slowly that swan emerges out of the water. You see it first, the little nub of the neck, his head's bent over, then the little nub of the back, and then more of the back, and then the whole neck and the feet. It rose out of that, a swan, a beautiful swan. And I just looked at the feathers, and they were just this beautiful, white, just pure, cleanliness, holiness, white. And I felt this kind of loving presence with that swan. It was, loving. It was say more blissful than loving. Bliss includes love, but bliss is, I believe, greater than love. I don't want to make anyone upset, but it was a little blissful. And so that to me was, anytime I get that blissful experience, I pay attention.
Well, thank you.
So thank you, Tina.
Thank you. That was not the intention, but it was nice to hear the next day. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, Janice. No, Janice, you're muted.
Got it.
Okay.
I just want to, you touched my heart because, you know, I've struggled with times of not wanting to know if I wanted to live, and thank God I have a son. And you know, we go through a lot, and I just want to say that you touched my heart. I can identify, and thank you for speaking.
Well, thank you, Janice. No, I think that's important. I mean, you guys have all helped me through the NDE community. You've been instrumental in my path. Any way I can help or be of assistance, that's fantastic. So thank you for speaking up and letting me know.
Thank you, Janice and Glenn. Anyone else? Oh, and Bethany.
Thank you, Tina, and thank you, Glenn. I thoroughly enjoyed the talk that you gave. I am curious because one of the things that we ask people to do is consider meditation when they're integrating after their near-death experience. And you mentioned the music from Eben Alexander, and I'm just wondering, is there a particular name of a song that you could share with us, or share the link to the song? I'd like to post it on the YouTube video when we post your video so that people can find it, and I think it might be helpful to them as well.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Well, there's a really easy answer to that. It's sacredacoustics.com, and you can, the last time I checked, you can actually get them to email you the OM file. That's the OM file for absolutely free. And the level of sophistication they put into this, I think, is impressive. I've learned, at the time I didn't know anything, but I've learned a little bit more now, so I can say they have layering of different waves, and it's about producing that binaural beat, you know, type of effect. But it helps you get down through the theta into the delta if you're really trying to go deep. And that's where you really need to get to the stillness. And that's a whole other topic. There are different kinds of meditation, but the most fruitful spiritual developing, unless God gives you a gift, that comes first. God's grace comes first. No questions about it. But as far as normal practices go, finding that stillness allows you then to be open up to any vibration, you know, that the spirit would choose. So you go through the subconscious, you go down, 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 you heal yourself. That's why you do the shadow work. You have to clear out the subconscious. And when you can find that stillness, it's like an infinite pond of consciousness. From there, all things are possible. Does that help?
It does help. I just have a follow-up question for clarification, and that is, do you recommend using just like listening from your phone, or do you recommend using headphones, or does it only work with headphones?
Headphones are a requirement to get the benefit, I think. Absolutely. Because they do produce, whether the binaural beats works by using two different beat frequencies, and your brain interpolates the desired tone. It's like your brain does simple math. It says, if this is 108 and this is 104, then I'm producing a 4 wave. That would be a delta, a low sleep wave, very deeply relaxed. Well, that's how they produce that.
That's awesome.
And that what did the trick for me. Now, the 2 files that I use in there, I can't recommend highly enough, are the OM file, and that's all you need. But me and my health problems, I decided to go with the Healing Center. And that has been very, very helpful for me. Like I said, I knew nothing. So just knowing that there were sound files and you could plug in your headphones and something would help you meditate better, that was a miracle. But these are very effective programs, I think.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bethany and Glenn. Now, okay, Jack, it's your turn.
Yes, Glenn, that was an incredible revelation and experience. And I was just curious, what was your discovery of the power of meditation introduced through a near-death experience, or was it just an evolution on your own?
It was an act of desperation. I really thought my life was about over, and I wanted to know what to do about that. And so I sat down and tried to meditate and ask God if he would talk to me. That was it.
Okay,
That's all I know. As far as technique, I had none. I listened to the own file. That own file is amazing. It's free. I can't believe, you know, if these guys weren't loving people, they'd be charging you $100 for that file. Okay, that's my opinion. See, sometimes people undervalue things that are free, but no, I just prayed. You know, I was a Christian and I prayed the Lord's Prayer incessantly. I still start every meditation with that because I built that into my own process. I think the neurons fire and God responds very quickly to me. That way I can go almost boom into a good meditative state that way. But that took a lot of time. I started with nothing and nowhere.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack. Kathy?
Yes, Glenn, thank you so much. What a beautiful job you did explaining everything. You just, you know, you just brought us right there, or you brought me right there. So thank you for that. Very nice job. And so I was curious, you mentioned something about the SRF.
Yes.
What was that again? The
Self-Realization Fellowship. It's
okay.
Yogananda's group out in California. Well, it's worldwide now, but they have a free meditation every weekday for us at 3 p.m. Eastern time.
Oh, every day at 3 p.m.
I do as many as I can get away with. Many of my great experiences, a couple of them I mentioned here, happened during the SRF. I've asked Babaji to help me to be a true yogi, and that was the most heartfelt cry, one of the most heartfelt cries I ever had in my life during that meditation. Absolutely free, and I couldn't recommend it highly enough.
Thank you. Yeah, sounds good. You're very convincing. You make me want to do that. Yeah, it sounds very good.
Thank you, Kathy. Anyone else?
Believe me, we've only touched the surface here, people. I'm encouraging you. Yes, go this path. Talk to God. I mean, things can just, anything is possible.
Thank you. Krista?
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you. That was incredible.
Okay, thank you. Well, coming from you, I'll take that as a huge compliment.
I mean, it really was. Thank you. I mean, you blessed us with sharing your experiences. It's amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Krista. Laurie?
Yeah. Hi, Glenn. Thank you so much. It sounds like you really went through a very, very difficult time and were able to come through it with meditation, which was very healing and very rewarding experience for you.
Yes.
I wanted to ask, these things that you've seen, the only thing I've seen during meditation is the epsilon sign was shown to me. And I haven't really pursued as to what that was meaning at the time. But you saw certain things like these balls. Were they like balls of creation? Before you answer that, though, I just wanted to say that when I was sick and in mold, I had the devil and the angel fighting on my shoulders for years.
Ooh.
It was awful. It was as though there was this power struggle within me and I couldn't control it.
Wow.
And they call it mold rage because the rage won. So it no longer controls me now, which is wonderful. So I understand that battle you were going through. Was that your negative experience? So I guess two questions. What were the balls that what's your take on that? And oh, I just lost what I was saying. I'm sorry. You had so much to say. So if we could start with that.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Thank you for that. I wanted to get to it and I blew it on timing. I now understand the little gray balls. This is my understanding. Okay, but I would describe them, and I've only learned this quite recently. Ray's guru. I think they were the atom, as described by Sri Yukteswar Hiri in The Holy Science, and that's a free book, by the way. I think it's Goodreads. You can download that book for free if you're interested. Anyone who wants to talk about it, email me. If you're not used to reading this stuff and it seems unclear, I'll do my best.
Okay.
really, I'll work with you to try to get you up to speed on something if there's, because he's trying to look at Hinduism and Christianity, and he has an incredible amount of knowledge, and he's speaking at a pretty high level. So if you don't have any background, you're like, oh, what is this stuff? I understand. But the atom is the doorway. Maharloka would be the sphere of creation, I believe it corresponds to. It's the doorway between, and this was, I believe, I only understand this because the tunnel that occurred, and that I got to feel the bliss from what occurred to me as the throne of God. At the time, I thought it was just a Christian metaphor. Turns out that's what Yukteswar calls the atom, the throne of the Creator. Because the spiritual energy, the pure love, that's what, when we talk about love creating things, it's not a metaphor. God is bliss, love, okay? His nature contains that. And if you look at the 8 descriptions of his qualities, bliss contains them all, right? I didn't even know that at the time. But in any event, this bliss love shines upon this consciousness creation called the atom. The atom has what's called the 4 ideas. Like, I'll do a terrible job, but I think maybe, oh yeah, the basics, not even up to free will yet. Time, space, time and space are 2 representatives. I forget the other one is. And so anyway, so this atom is a spiritual atom. It's not the atom we think of, like a particle in our physical universe. The holy light, the Holy Spirit of God, love, shines upon that. But the ignorance, this is called the ignorance. These, the 4 ideas create the sub stuff, like time and space. How do you create time and space? The divisible within the indivisible. God is one, but yet how do we have an experience of dualism? This is getting to the heart of that at a pretty technical level. He's saying these 4 ideas form what we call the atom, and that's what I believe those little balls represented. That's why they could make a spear around me. They are the doorway. They are the thing that the light shines upon that creates our material universe of light and dark. So above them into it is love. Coming out of that is a filtered view of that love broken into components, basically. So is that enough? Does that help?
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And I just wanted to mention, too, that I love our meditations with Andrea. And now that Kristen Marie's joined us, it's even so much more meaningful. But that Ave Maria song that Andrea brought into the group, I wish she'd play it again, because when that song comes on, I am enveloped in energy, electricity, and love. A feel. That song is really special. So I don't know if we have that somewhere that Bethany could post who that song was by. I can't remember. I know I've written it down somewhere. But yeah, that song is something special, and as well as Krista Marie's healing prayers, which I've actually felt in a session I had with her myself. You know, it was just so, being in these groups and being in these meditations is just really a sense of just community, and being able to experience more spiritual experiences, as well as being able to send the love and the light healing energy to others. So thank you again, Glenn. It was very interesting.
Beautiful, Lori. Thank you. If you have any other questions, like I said, we can be in contact. And I'd like to throw it out there. Did you feel any tingling when I talked?
I'm sorry. Say that again.
I was wondering if Lori felt any tingling when I talked.
Yeah, when you mentioned the Ave Maria song. Yes. Good. It's here now. Yeah, I got it.
Thank you, Lori. Bethany,
you get a tingle when you know it's right.
Bethany, you're on again.
I'm on again. I think that people ask their questions. I didn't want to hog too much of the airtime, but I have so many questions for you, Glenn, because I don't know. Do you have to be retired to meditate? Because I feel like I just can't. I just have so much going on that it's really hard for me to just like give myself that 20 minutes. Right. But you also make it sound like really interesting. I'm afraid I might fall asleep, but
no, I always do it at night to help relax my body. That's how I started this process, because it helps relax the body enough to help me sleep better. That was one big benefit. So I just did that. I know it can be really, really hard, so just do the best you can. And if you can find time, even maybe just to listen to it while you're working in the background. There are other files they use. I use single tone files like theta and alpha. If you want, we can talk about it, or you go onto their site and read about it. You can wear those while you're just doing things. It'll help keep your mind in a more balanced, relaxed thing. You might find at the end of the day, if you do that, that you're not quite as stressed and you have a little time to free up mental and physical energy. The theta file in particular, but the problem is for me, I go so deep in the theta that it's a little counterproductive for doing like work. Probably alpha would be better for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I do wonder, and I'm not seeing anyone else with their hand up, so I'll ask another question. How much time do you spend meditating?
Well, okay. Until very recently, it was almost always the SRF, maybe a half an hour with Peter a couple times a week. And then I do every night. I do at least a half an hour, and it used to be about an hour to an hour and a half. But you know, that was just because of my health, and I had the time, and it helped me sleep better. So it was a net gain for me. And I was, like I said, these things were happening to me. So it was like, boom, what am I supposed to do with this? And it was wonderful, but I would say if you can find 20 minutes to a half an hour in even 15 minutes with that Om file, if you've never tried, if you've ever had a quality binaural beats program, give it a shot. Try it when you're tired. Try it when you're not tired. See if it affects you. If you fall asleep to it, I say good, because that's going to help your brain be more relaxed more quickly, and you might sleep better that night.
Yes.
Sleep is so important.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Bethany. Laurie?
Yeah, Glenn, you talked about your negative experience. Now, I have mentioned before that I could feel a negative presence that I experienced in the past. And I've had things come to me, into my body, into my mind, since my experience, but I don't try to make it happen. And it's not while I'm meditating usually. And, you know, did that make you cautious that you were stepping into a wrong area when that was happening to you?
Well, in the end, yeah, but it was so good at first that I delayed giving it up, because I thought that this is just psychology. Okay, I'm infusing more energy. Now I'm dealing with my own stuff. Some people who do these practices say you need to go see a therapist because stuff's going to come up. And so I thought, okay, this is just me. I'm dealing with my latent aggression or hurt or whatever. But I found out that in my case, that was not the case. That wasn't going to work. This was a definite spiritual energy. It had an agenda. I heard, like, you don't need the Christ one time while I was infusing energy into my body. I mean, these are things I didn't have time to talk about, but it was clear to me this was more than just psychology involved here. And meditation really got me through that. So I hear you saying that you meditate too, and I'm glad that you can, because I know you suffer from some pain, right? Can't hear you.
Yeah, I do. Actually, what got me through the toxic poisoning of the mold was very psychologically unbelievable. I went to a place you could not imagine. And what brought me out of it, and what keeps me going, like you say, you meditate every night when you go to sleep. That's how I got through it, was I meditate before I go to sleep. And all I do is say God over and over. And I focus on my third eye in the white light. And before I know it, I'm relaxed and asleep. So it does help to do it just before bedtime.
That is perfect. I mean, you've got a simple mantra, a simple focus.
That's it. One word.
The KISS method. Keep it simple, sweetie. Okay.
Okay. Greg? Definitely. Thank you. Thank you, Glenn.
Greg Busher? Did I say it right?
Boucher. Hi.
Hi.
Oh, hey, here I am. Multitasking. I heard the KISS method back when I was in a band. Someone actually said, "Hey, keep it simple, stupid." I remember that. You know, hey, not for nothing, but I remember learning. I'm trying to. I remember learning a long time ago that before you start a meditation practice, always say something like, you know, I am receptive only to the highest and best of influences. Because, like you were saying before, you could be bringing some stuff in that is not really good.
Yes.
I guess. Possibly if you're opening up your channels like that. I know this warning came to me from somebody who knew psychically that I was messing around with a Ouija board. This is when I was like 20 or so, and was like, don't do that. And she also told me, about meditation and, always say that you're, declare that you're receptive to the highest of influences. And then I would go to her meditation, like workshops every Monday night in Salem. And we would say that. I remember that.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That's true. A lot of people do that. In this situation, I thought I was doing that, but I'm not sure. I stepped into something that I think even surprised the person who was teaching it to me. So I don't know what was going there. It may have been a karmic thing I had to deal with, maybe to get to the next stage, because coming out of this negative time, it sucked for so long. From like December till like Andrea, the healing with Andrea happened in April. It was probably like July until I was really kind of starting to feel normal again. But out of that now, I've got new practices and I've got new stuff. Could do a whole talk on this stuff. If anyone cares, after the meeting, I can do a quick 5-minute intro to a thing that my daughter and I do together. That she, in the space of a couple of weeks, just had an amazing, and I'm bragging here as a proud papa, I guess. She just had an amazing experience of the third eye, which even I have never had this. And just from doing this one simple exercise, actually. So.
Okay. Any other questions?
Stunned them. Well, I hope most people were able to get something.
Put them in deep thought. Okay, so that's probably a good time for you to do what you want to do.
Okay. Well, one of the most powerful yet simple, things we do is something you can actually find online. Again, this is free. The Isha Foundation will teach you this basic method. There are variations on it. And I'm going to do a simplified version of that. And if you want to like work on it yourself and, go for the whole shebang, so to speak, we'll get you the link. We'll get you set up. It's just a few steps. It's not that big a deal. But since we only have limited time here, and I don't know how much interest there might really be, I was thinking we'd just do a quick, basically 3-step process. And what we're going to aim for is development of the third eye, but it has there's other things going on in there, which if you want to delve into understanding more of this stuff later, that's fine. But what I would do very first is, blow your nose or clear your breathing if you need to. I frequently do. We're going to do, I believe this is called the Vishnu Mudra. So right, left hand, I don't think it matters. So 2 fingers up against the thumb and 2 fingers here out. Thumb extended, right? And you're going to block your right nostril. You do alternate nostril breathing, or Nadi Shodhana. So we'll try to do, let's say, 6 of them. But if you guys are open for more, 10 is a good number, because by the time I get 10, I get a somatic effect. So this is actually playing around with some physiology in your body, which is, for us, my teacher says, we're using the biggest instrument in the room to help you set the stage for God contact. Okay, so Vishnu Mudra. Block your right nostril, breathe in through your left. Good full breath. Slight pause. Now block the left with the thumb. Breathe out slowly. Count. We'll do it in unison again in a minute, but I'll say, as you're blowing the breath in, or drawing it in and you're blowing it out, imagine it flowing through your body on that side. So start again. Block the right nostril, left. I'm envisioning the air moving through the left side of my body up into my head. Right nostril out. Down the body, down the leg, connecting to the earth if you like. Repeat. Let's do it like 2 more times. One more. Okay. If you do it enough times and with a little bit of practice, it should happen fairly quickly. And maybe you even experienced it now. You should actually begin to feel a little bit of energy or tingle on the side of the body as you're breathing in and out of it, up and down, up and down. You should begin to feel that. It's called the somatic response, right? And this is actually working with the caudate nucleus, begin to organize to bring the hemispheres of the brain together. Right? So, okay, now what you want to do that is move straight from that into ohms. So we'll just do 10 ohms here. I'll just do them as an example and show you. Tell me if I'm taking too much time. Oh. Oh. I only did 6. That's probably long enough for a group, right? I don't want to drag it out. Now we do something called Bostrika, and you can skip this part, but I'll show it to you. You reach for the sky with your hands, you grab above, and you yank your breath down. Obviously, if you have pain or issues, then don't use force. But okay, you generally do that about 10 times, but you can vary this according to your own experience. Then you do the Shambhavi mudra. That's very simple. You use Gyan mudra in your fingers and on your leg. What you want to do, this may sound funny if you're not used to doing the yogic stuff, but you need to squeeze your perineum or your sphincter, your butt, squeeze in your navel, and we'll bend the neck slightly. That's called the 3 locks. You're locking your column. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll actually prepare our breath. I'll just do a sample to show you now. I'll do that. You hear me breathe, and then when I tilt my head down, I'm actually tilting my eyes up to the center of the forehead. You may have seen this before. This is Shambhavi mudra. You may have seen pictures with guys with their eyes, or girls with their eyes up like this. Well, we're going to strain it a little bit, but then bring it back to comfortable. But always maintain that view up. So I'll just do an example. Here we go. Locking the column.
Can you do me a favor? All of a sudden, the whole picture became so large that I can't get myself off when the time comes out of it.
Okay. Now you want to do that, generally do that 5 times hard. But if you don't want to use a lot of pressure on the chest with holding the breath hard, you can do it soft and maybe do a few more repetitions. Now, believe it or not, when you lock that column, there's a lot going on here. I didn't know any of this stuff. When you lock that column, you squeeze the butt, the navel, and bend the neck slightly. You're doing that lock. And when you bring up some breath, you're creating pressure in the chest. That's going to hit the dorsal vagal nerve. Right? And that's going to allow you to bring more of that prana energy up into the third eye position, into your medulla, actually, medulla oblongata, the Third eye is a projection from the medulla oblongata. So if you all want to do a couple reps of that, or what do you think? And I would start slow, build up a little tolerance, but then like me, when I do it hard, I try to hold my breath as much as I can, and maybe I'll show that off here. And I want to get pressure in the chest because I want to hit that dorsal vagal nerve. And I want that sweet, sweet, blissful relaxation. All right, here we go. Breathe. Lock the column, breathe in. Look up. Hold breath. Just hold it as long as you're comfortable. Anybody ready for number 2? I do quick catch-up breaths. Lock the column. If everyone is agreeable, I'd say do at least 3. Do you want to do one more? Okay, here we go. And if you do it sufficiently, you'll feel kind of a deep relaxation from hitting that dorsal vagal. In your mind, here's a benefit I didn't even understand. The main reason I started doing it is because when I tried it, I felt that my mind cleared up. I have an energetic weakness that causes sinus issues. My breathing got better, and my mind was calmer. Whether you have any spiritual experience other than that whatsoever, that's a huge benefit. And that practice will do that. It should do it reliably. If you invest the energy into learning the steps and giving some effort to it, it should reliably do that, I think, for everybody.
Glenn, before I stop the recording, I just want to thank you so much for coming tonight. I'm going to pause our recording, and you're welcome to stay on to talk more about this, but I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming and talking with our group tonight. Your experiences are fascinating and certainly gives a lot of, really helps me better understand how meditation can be a support to people. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Glenn. Thank you very much.
Awesome, guys. Thank you. It was a blessing to be here. A blessing to meet you all.
Thank you for that meditation. I'm going to go practice. So thank you.
If anybody wants to get a hold of me, I can give you the deets on how to find it from the issue, so you can print it out and do exactly and learn everything you need. It's pretty simple.
That would be helpful.
Sure. You know,